Will this be available for us?
Yes, it's all available online.
Thank you.
At 4.
Oh my God, heart palpitations now. Is this the thing? Or this is just an old live stream? Okay.
I'm going to go and talk
That's light. Oh, okay, so this is perfect. Okay.
You can say hi.
Okay. Well, how do I really get
later. Remind me. Who's gonna go with me to Louis and we need all of y'all stay here or something like
All right, ILHC, thank you for your patience. We are going to get started here with the final LED talk of the day. I'm very excited to have you here. And you should all be excited to be here because we have a fantastic guest and we're going to talk about some things. We're going to follow up on a little bit of a motif that we talked about yesterday, that Mickey and Latasha talked about yesterday, talking about our legacy and our elders and listening to those elders and learning what we can about their experience and bringing that into the dance that we do today. I will just let everyone know that the LED talks have been recorded. They're going to go online somewhere at one point or another. We do have another one tomorrow. Lana Turner, who gave a fantastic talk this morning about style and dance, is going to be finishing her epic trilogy of LED talks tomorrow. So I encourage everyone to come out for that. It's going to be at noon right here in the museum. I'd like to welcome everybody on Facebook or wherever we're streaming to this great conversation that is going to be very one-sided for very good reason. This woman on my left is a choreographer, a performer. Her resume is amazing. I won't waste our time going through it all because it's very lengthy and I could fill the hour, and also you should know who the thing is by now. So if you don't, do your research. But I will be talking with the amazing Nikki Davidson about Frankie Manning and Norma. So and you've got a microphone right there on your left.
I can't use you.
I mean, you can if you want. I'm going to be done talking right after this, so we're fine.
Get a little bit of that juice after that.
Yeah. So I'll just kick it off. Oh, my name is Ryan Swift, by the way. I'll be the coordinator for the LED Talks this weekend. Peter has the right response. Thank you. That was a boo for those of you that didn't hear. I've been the coordinator for the LED Talks this weekend. I'm happy that everyone is here in this room. So without all that out of the way, now that Peter's going to be quiet. When I was reading your bio, it kind of started with saying in 1985, you kind of became part of the Lindy Hop world under the tutelage of Norma Miller. So I'd like to know about a little bit of your history, but maybe you can start with your history in dance and lead us to when and how you met Norma.
Okay. Well, I've danced since I was 7. Music hit me. And also, they had to figure out what to do with the energy. So they put it into dance school. And I was very fortunate because I went to, you had Miss Mary Jane Dance School, those smaller schools. And you take tap, ballet, gymnastics, but the thing about this lady that was very special that I finally had my aha moment, Mary Jane Carswell, was once a month, she would put some music on and make you improvise. And of course, you were a little kid, like, ugh. But you had to do it, and after a while, I got into it, because it was music, and it was all different kinds of music, but just the fact that she tapped into getting you to celebrate your feelings, your emotions with the music. Well, God didn't make me with good turned out hips and all that stuff, but I had to dance. I had to dance. So then the second big moment was meeting a lady named Mary Beard. She was a dancer who used to, what was his name? He lived in East Harlem, Lonnie Southern. He had a line of girls, you know, and you went out dancing. So when she retired in that realm, she came out to Long Island where I was growing up. And by this time, I was of that, like 11, 12 years old, when the street starts calling you and, you know, you're hanging out. And so she drove by one day and she's like, she stopped her car, she said, anybody that I can see the rhythms in their feet and they barefooted must know how to tap. And I was like, yeah. And I was one of the first of the 5 Vignettes cultural workshop that was started in Long Island, and that this year they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. It was one of those communities, when you talk about communities taking care of each other, they have given away over $800,000 in scholarship money over the years for kids graduating and going to college, and they've done all of this with no grants. It's the money from the people and how you can change a community. And I've used to go out there and do classes. A couple of people got into performing arts because of me. One of them is now a principal at a school. You know, you talk about the power of dance and leadership training. This institution that I was a part of really helped cultivate that, and cultivate, as Norma would say, a sense of destiny. So I went to college because I had to figure out something to do. And I went to the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. I majored in dance education because, as my father said, you can go, you don't need a degree to go for an audition. But just in case you don't get that audition, you might need to get a job. So why don't you go into education? So if that don't work, you could go be a teacher. So, you know, but you wasn't going to go back home and have daddy take care of you. You know, not at that point. So that's what I did. And once again, it was a good experience because at that time, the African American Cultural Center was on the campus and very strong, and had a series of workshops, from writers' workshops, big bands, dance, theater. And it was very helpful because I was one of the few African Americans to make it through that department. And during that time, to get through a dance department, it's very difficult because one of the things during that time they would always tell you, oh, your butt is just too big and you just can't, your alignment, you know. But I was very lucky that at the same year I went, a man named Chester Walensky, who had danced with Anna Sokoloff and Jose Limon. He was coming in to teach, and he looked at me, he's like, I've never trained a black body before, but if you work with me, I'll work with you. And that was like the key, because then it was about how to find alignment, not how, an alignment and the body as an instrument. So my whole dance career at the University of Illinois, in terms of teachers and technique, which I was very appreciative, because in that department you took technique every day, and you took ballet at least 2 to 3 times a week before you dealt composition or any other styles of movement. So I studied with Chester and another lady named Beverly Blossom, who was from the Nikolai company, who's very rhythmic. His movement is very rhythmic, very much with the movement. So with that, I was like, cool, I could work hard. And choreographically working at the Center, African American Center, I was co-director with the graduate students from Ghana, And we combined, so we became Omni-Move, one in movement. And so everybody did all the styles of the diaspora. And so by the time I finished all that and was headed back to New York, I was ready.
What styles of dancing were you doing?
Modern jazz in terms of jazz music. We didn't categorize what we was feeling. It was really about, you know, like I did, one of my things that I always remember from there was I did a piece to Attica Blues by Archie Shepp, you know, because of the emotional impact of the Attica incident. And for me, it was what the black officers had to decide when they shot into that prison and shot other people of color, you know. So that was, so to be able to put a suite together with that music, you know. And then while I was there, I got a chance, because they had a lot of good people, I got a chance to meet Oliver Nelson, who was a great arranger, saxophone player. I got a chance to do Max Roach's Freedom Now Suite, first presentation in this country, because that suite was banned from the United States when it was recorded. So I had a lot of really good, strong, there was a man named Tony Zamora, who if you were a black musician or dancer, you were in his group. So I got a chance to dance with live music and work all of that and learn to dance in the prisons, you know. And that kind of gave them, one of the musicians that came back home, Maurice McKinley, said, there's a lady in New York that dances to jazz music, you know, dealing with live. And I said, who is that? And it was Diane McIntyre. And so before I graduated, actually, I would go home to New York once a year. I started segueing and networking with that group, so that I did my bachelor's and 1 year of graduate work before I left, and was able to come right to New York and start rehearsing with Diane McIntyre's Sounds of Motion. And that was, once again, dealing with live music, the interpretation of music. I always say I got broken into and got my chops for dancing and dancing to jazz by, she was doing a collaboration with Cecil Taylor. And I was the new kid on the block. I had spent 25 minutes on stage with Cecil Taylor's music, straight out. There was at one point through the rehearsals, I just kind of passed out. And I was on the ground, he looked over, he's like, oh, I guess rehearsal's over. And I call that day being born again, because I was like wiped out. You know, just kind of coming from Illinois where the air is all fresh and stuff. Now you're in New York with polluted air and you're trying to dance for hours on end. So I had to go home, and I remember taking this hot bath and feeling my whole body just go. I was like, wow. But after that, boy, I could handle it. I was all right, you know. During that time also, she did a collaboration with the great U.B. Blake. And he had just finished his book with, what is his name? Cecil. Yeah. And he autographed a book for each one of us. So you know I was ready to dance then.
So that was the 1980s, early 1980s?
Yeah. And Diane McIntyre's studio was on 125th Street and Lenox Avenue. So we had heard about these older people doing these dances. But we also heard that the lady, she didn't like professional dancers because they counted. So it was like, oh, okay. So I was out on tour with Sun Ra, and we were doing things, and he basically said, because I was doing some work, and he's like, just as there's jazz standards in music, there are jazz standards in dance, and you need to know that. That's when I realized I had to get to them old people. And so you had to have a strategy. Soon after, this was 1985. That's why I took me some notes. 1985. Norma and Frankie did a show, and it was really Norma's produced show, down at a place called the Village Gate, and it was produced by Larry Schultz. And I saw it, and I was like, yeah, I saw half the steps that I thought I had invented while I was improvising the sunbow. I was like, oh, okay. I guess I got to go learn some things.
You saw this in the audience, you saw this before.
Yeah, and then I saw two of the dancers that I knew from the African dance community. So I knew I had somebody to talk to how I was going to get in. So you just don't walk in. So they told me they rehearsed on Sundays and, you know, I should come up. And so I came up and it was Norma, Frankie, Billy Richter, Stoney, Darlene, Amanier, and Clyde Wilder, Amanier Payne and Clyde Wilder. And they was hitting it. So Norma looked at me and said, "Can you swing?" And I was like, yeah, I can do this. You know, you look at a few little things. So then Clyde tried to swing and I was bluffing my way through.
Is partner dancing that you were doing?
Yeah.
Had you done partner dancing before that?
Well, yeah, we did it, but not with the consciousness of what it was that we were doing. It was with the music. That's what made Sunrise say, I had to find the standards, because he saw it in it, but he also saw that I didn't know what I was doing.
So you were swinging out for the first time, basically, while Norma was watching you.
Yeah, well, yeah, for real, you know, because when you know, as people will say, when you're at home and when you're at certain parties, you do some partner dance, somebody spun you around, throw you out. Yeah, it's fun, you know, it's not you are doing or this is what you do, but that's what made it a natural thing to do it. So then you find out, it ain't nothing new. It's something going on and on and on. So that's what makes it like walking into kindergarten. So I walked into kindergarten and she's like, you really need preschool, but you can hang out. You know, so I was able to hang out on Sundays, you know, watch the rehearsals. I went to Lincoln Center Dance Library, looked at those videos. Clyde and I would meet outside of Lincoln Center in the park area and practice, you know, trying to get them steps together. And I'd still go up on Sundays and I had to go get the coffee. And sometimes I had to take people home and, you know, but she never knew I danced right down the street for a living. So, you know, but that's about humbling yourself into a new situation. Even though you think you know something, you have to just cleanse yourself and go in open and receive. So that's what the test was. I had to just be receiving.
When you went to Lincoln Center, the library, and you found some of those old clips, did you find and did you realize, if you did, that the dancers in these clips were Norma and Frankie and Billy?
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah. Yeah, because they had told Clyde, and Clyde told me. See, you know, so you pass the word around in order to know what it is.
So what was it like seeing Norma as a 17-year-old in these film clips, and then working with Norma, who was in her 60s then,
yeah,
I guess?
It didn't hit me. It was just because in her 60s, she was still hitting it. You know, she wasn't doing real high air steps, but she was still hitting it. So it didn't hit me that this is her young, this is her old, until she got real old.
Like next year? Next year's 100, that's real old.
Next year, you know, that's real old, you know. Because she always gets in my case when I be saying, calling her elder. What you calling me that elder? You know, but it is a sign of honor. It is also the thing that we not the same. She is here. You know, y'all got to be there so that I have some place to go. Because if I'm here with you, then where do I go? You know, so that's where, yeah, you are. You know, but the people of that performance of that time did not like to be old because it could close down work possibilities. In a lot of situations, they only hired so many people of color, and they didn't care if they was young or old. So sometimes when people say things didn't get passed on, it was because basically we were competing for the same types of jobs. Performing, so, and it happened to me at this university in Long Island I went to interview for, and because I had the degrees and some experience with those elders, I was considered in the same folder. And it was like, no, I shouldn't. And they really tried to trick me up because, you know, I knew how I thought I should be paid. And something that, you know, still hits me, they said, well, here's this person, and open up, and they're getting paid this. Do you want it? And at that point, do I disrespect my elders and the masters and say, well, yeah, I need to get paid because I got this and that? It shut my mouth up, and I did want the gig. So I took the gig, you know, but that always stuck with me, that the society was going to actually compare me with my teachers and my elders, and that we had to. And so I didn't want to play that. You know, I didn't want to play that. So I would go, and there was a couple of them, I call them the bread and butter gigs, where ain't nobody gonna know they happen, but you go out to Brooklyn in some club and you end up having to dance, you know. So I did a couple of those with Norma's show. And then one day at Roseland, she had a show with the Count Basie Orchestra, and I went to hang out, and one of the dancers didn't show up, and it was showtime. And if you all know Norma, and nothing's gonna stop the show. So she comes out, she looks at me and said, come on, come here. She took me in the back. She had a leotard with her. She gave me her leotard. She took the scarf off her neck and put it around my hips. And I only had slippery shoes on. And I got baptized with Back Bay and jumping at the Woodside with air steps.
Those are fast songs if you don't know. Those are fast songs.
And it was like, I still, you know, but I got through it, and it was exciting. You know, your blood starts running, you know, stuff like that. And then I was dancing, and you know, and I was pretty familiar with a lot of the Basie tunes, so you know, I knew this ending, so I was ready, and then I was doing my little steps, and then it didn't end, and I did my stuff. And I looked up on the bandstand, and Danny Turner, the saxophone player, he was looking at my steps too. And he was like calling the step, you know, he was talking, and I was like, I did this, and he was doing that. I was like, oh yeah. So that exchange got exciting too, you know. So that really just turned me around. So as time went on, you know, with Norma, she worked for a Queens school called the Austin Dancers, who had the contract for the morning shows in the schools. And it was me, Clyde, Debbie Williams, Chaz, and Chaz's sister Linda, who played congas, and Chaz also tapped. And me and Debbie tapped. But Chaz and Linda would do a call and response in terms of rhythm and tap and stuff like that. And Frankie and Norma would do their specialty, of course, with shining stockings. And Frankie would be on the side. And sometimes Clyde and I would not come down out of the air, right on the beat. And we did that a few mornings until the point Frankie came up and said, if y'all don't land on the beat, I'm taking it out. And it wasn't even his choreography. But we knew if he said he was going to take it out if we didn't land on the beat. So I pulled myself down out the sky to make sure we hit that thing because I didn't want to take it out. But it was a good training ground in the having the both of them in the mornings. And I'll tell you, doing Back Bay Shuffle, that was the warm-up, baby. That's how we opened the show. It was no air steps, but the footwork was so intricate. Because if you've seen Norma's early choreography, she could syncopate some stuff, and it almost reached beep out, and then right at the end of the phrase, you're right there with the music. So I did that, and then Frankie started doing more teaching. So I started working with him. With Norma, we did the school things until she left town, and then I kept her show basically, and then added a couple of numbers, And we continue to do that in the schools, different places for up until about 2012. And so that it also made it so when Norma did come in town, she always had a group to back her up doing her stuff, you know. And if you all know Norma, she's not really a teacher. She's a choreographer.
She'll tell you that too.
Yeah. She's a choreographer, you know, and there's certain breaks, man, she'd be like a pickle on it if you didn't do it right, you know. And then sometimes I realize it's how we articulated the phrasing. If it's, you know, if you're starting it on an 8, if you're starting at da, should, or just like the do, you know. So I started learning not to try to sing it in her presence. Whatever she's singing, then we're going to do it the way she's singing, you know, because that was her sensibility. Well, the day came when I had to expose myself for what I do, because I've been very fortunate. I have an angel named Kobe Norita who's produced me over the years in dance, and she's very much a champion always of women being their full artistic selves, even if you have artistic husbands or boyfriends. Don't put yourself behind. So, and she put her money where her mouth is, so she would produce the show. So I put together a show and I hired Norma to do comedy, you know. And so she walked in and she saw a trio, and then she's like, I can't use that language since we're on television, but she asked, how you gonna do big band music with a trio? And you know them other words. And so then she walked into the theater and she saw which 3 musicians I had with me. Then she turned to me with another magic word and said, who are you? Because I had Charlie Persip on drums, Bob Cunningham on bass, and Ross Townsend on piano. And though that was my playground, that was my trio. So I could create, and then sometimes Ross said, baby, you need 2 more bars to finish that out. Or, you know, go on and finish, you know. So there was also in my creating work and stuff, guidance from the musicians, because they could see the music. I learned how to sing the music. I learned how to sing arrangements. So when I had to take them into the studio, because you can't always take live music, and they messed up in one of the first things, and they thought they was going to get away with it. So I let them finish recording, and I said, well, you know, in that first chorus, y'all played, and shouldn't have gone. They looked at each other and they said, you heard that? Mm-hmm. So they knew they had to record it again, you know. And so Norma always knew she could make her some kind of money. So what I did was I made a list of, I went to the people, I made a list of some of the places me and Norma went, and that we still today, every year, we're in New Orleans at the Louis Armstrong Jazz Camp, where she is honored as the Supreme Elder. She don't have to do nothing but fuss. And I got to do the work. But the children learn very quickly, and these are musicians being taught to swing dance. And so one little boy said to his parents, you know, because I come the first week, Norma comes the second week, so they got it, and they know, they said, well, if Miss Norma comes, if she cusses us out, that means we got potential. You know? And they basically, you know, because the kids on their own one day, you know that thing where they do the coming up on the back of it. Yes. When Norma saw them do that, she jumped out of her seat and said, well, now do like this and do that like that, and you know, and so that's the thing, if you hit a good nerve on Norma, that she really sees what you're going for, then she'll give it the world. And it actually, when the day it happened with some young dancers in my studio, she don't say nothing. Basically, some more of them other words. You know, because it ain't gonna happen. Is that Ramona? No. Oh, okay. I was gonna get nervous there. You know, yeah.
Too many babies to keep track.
Well, that's what happens when you're dancing and you happy. We were in a rehearsal and there were a bunch of young black professionals, and I was like, because basically people have gotten older, people have moved, you know, so the real crew was gone, and we had some, so then we had these others. And Norma came in and she sat on the sofa, and she got them long nails, you know. So she was working them nails, she looked all very soft. And so then when I said, Norma, we getting ready to be finished, you want to see? She's like, nah, tell them to keep practicing. And I was like, okay. And everybody in that room knew what that meant. And it was like, I was thinking that the Creator's keeping her on the planet, so I can get me some more black people together that can satisfy her before she goes. but you know, and that's just because her standard is high. Her standard's high, and she doesn't intellectualize it. Either you see it coming in her body, or you don't, you know. And I remember even there was one day we was at some festival and the white kids was hitting it, man. She's like, yeah, that's some real good dancing, but that ain't swinging. And I looked, I was like, well, okay, Norma. You know, but she was able to appreciate the dancing. She was able to hear and feel the communication. You know, some of you older ones know she could shoot herself in the foot many a time because she is not one to hold her words. You know, but as she's gotten older, she has become more open, you know, and more gentle in some ways.
In some ways.
Yeah, in some ways, but you know, Norma's Norma. And what's interesting about Norma is the fact that she's self-made. You know, she went from swing to Norma and the Jasmine. She went to writing with Red Fox as a writer. And Chance had some pictures. Honey, she was even pointing her toes. She had this real long line, and so she had spent some time in a new dance group in New York City, you know, and going into other styles of dance that she did bring, but it all has to do with the music and your relationship with the music. So we went to Grove, Illinois, Williamstown, Massachusetts, St. Peter's Church many times. Aaron Davis Hall, Colby's Place, Lincoln Center Library, Lenox Lounge, the Schaumburg, Garden Riverside Public Schools in Queens, the Dwyer Center, and many times in Baltimore. Baltimore was like her kind of second place. And very young, she met Marcus, who some of you all might meet on Sunday. Marcus and his first partner. So she just loved them and loved Lawrence Bradford and the Hand Dance Association. So whenever she had gigs down in D.C., she didn't bother bringing nobody from New York. She just called Marcus, you know. And so when I had my gig down in D.C., I called Marcus. But he was grown by then, but you know how things spill over. And there were several people from the hand dance community that would come up to study with Frankie, so that they could make that linkage, you know, that hand dancing is connected through the evolution of the music, you know, and so that partner dancing did not stop with Lindy Hop, you know, in the Black African American community. Well, you got a question?
I was going to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Having spent all that time with Norma, can you maybe just tell all of us something that you learned from Norma? Like what do you take away from that experience that you had with Norma all these years?
Well, clarity of intent. I know I dance. My relationship with music, showmanship. She is an absolute performer, going into what you were talking about in clothes and costumes, even to this day. When Norma comes in, you know, she got something sparkly on. She is in a set. Yeah, right in the corner is one of her outfits. Now, you know, you all know about the modern dance era. Costumes was not one of the most significant things. So, you know, as long as you had lady tights on, you was cool, you know. And you let the movement speak for itself. No, you had to get dressed. You had to get dressed. And basically, with Norma, it was maintaining her work, because Norma lived for today, you know, and so she and sometimes did not appreciate or understand the importance of her classic works and her choreography, the way it was for shows. And so for me, it was very important to maintain that. Even some of them breaks, that even every time she came, she saw something different, because this is one of the main things after she left for Vegas and she came back and she came to us and said, jazz is not stagnant. It is always changing and growing. I don't want to come back here and see y'all just doing the same thing. So right there, it was, okay, we maintain her stuff, but we got to have our own. And we got to, you know, and develop that, which we've done. So in that segment, you see, in New York, it's sometimes hard to be one company and be able to do different styles of communication, even if it's within the same culture of the diaspora. So what I did is I have 3 different name companies that do different things. So the Savoy Swingers do Lindy Hop, tap, and most of the time it's with live music. So those are the things that I kind of carry, and even in New Orleans, I still, and the kids, we all know, when she comes in, we are all under the microscope, you know, and she'll direct, she'll do what Norma does, you know, and we take that. And now, as an elder, as a more delicate elder, it's just about serving her and pleasing her, you know.
What about Frankie?
Okay, Frankie's trip was a little bit different, but still just, it's like having a mother and a father in Lindy Hop. Mother and father are different, but the core is the same, and you're not going to ever pit one against the other, so you can't say, well, Norma said this, or Frankie. It's the same, you know, it is like having parents. It's hard to talk about Frankie and not talk about Ernie Smith. He was a film collector of African-American dance and music, and they were like brothers. And when Frankie started going out, he went out with Frankie, Ernie, myself, and Chaz. And then, you know, sometimes different variations. So that in a place like that, like what you're doing now, Ernie would do the films and talk about them, and then we would perform and talk and stuff like that. Ernie was very interesting because he's one of those, what I call the special white people. His spirit was in the dance. His spirit was, he needed that, you know, and no matter what girlfriends he had, none of his girlfriends had that kind of energy. But to be his girlfriend, they had to